Hello, so this is a re-recording of the real estate market update that I gave on May 13th at our online webinar. I'm going to be borrowing heavily from the California COVID-19 economic market update given on May 6th by Jordan Levine, who is the Deputy Chief Economist for the California Association of Realtors. I'm going to call it CAR from here on out. And I did ask Mr. Levine for permission, and thankfully he agreed to grant me that. So what's the real estate market doing? Well, as you all know, I'm sure our home prices have been steadily increasing over the past several years, 7 years or so. And we were actually off to a very good start in 2020 when the coronavirus hit. And that's impacted every part of our lives, and definitely real estate is no exception. The question mark right now is where things will go, and that's still still not certain. But I thought it would be good to just do a little update on where things are at now that we've finished off a full month in April after the shelter-in-place took effect. So borrowing from the CAR slides again, sales overall were down 28%. So this is the number of sales, not the price. Number of sales were down 28% or the volume of sales, sorry, were down 28% from early March statewide. So if you look at the right-hand side column, the first two bars that you see are the first 2 weeks of March, which was before the shelter-in-place took effect. And then it follows all the way through every week until the last week of April. So one thing to keep in mind with the sales is that anything that happened immediately after shelter in place was probably already happening before the shelter in place happened. So in terms of listings that newly came on the market, got into contract, and closed, we're seeing more of those toward the end of this period, the last 2 weeks of April and probably in the first 2 weeks of May. We do see that in California, it went from 671 per week down to 486. So that's that 28% decrease. The left-hand side columns you'll see here are also denote the Bay Area. So you see that same decrease, about 25 to 30%, going from 104 to 76 sales that happened. Is it a good time to buy or sell? So this is taken from a survey of realtors and to measure what their client sentiment was. So when asked, do you think most buyers think it's a good time to buy a home in California? If you go back to September of 2018, it shows that stays fairly steady. And then even through May of this year, even with all that's happening with the coronavirus, still that sentiment is at 31%. As opposed to when you go to the sellers on the other side, on the right-hand side, this has generally been higher, especially since the 2018, and reached a peak at 62% in February of this year, and that has gone down in the last couple of months to more like 26, 29%. So you see a big discrepancy between buyer sentiment and seller sentiment, where buyers feel that it's still a good time to buy, but sellers have decided to hold off. We're hopeful that it's more that they have delayed their plans rather than completely deciding not to sell their property. So it's just a matter of delay to see how things pan out, especially in terms of the coronavirus. We do see that taking that local to single-family homes in San Mateo County. The number of new listings, we take this back for 5 years, and we see that with the seasonal trends where these dips are in December and January, increases throughout the year. You do see some dips for summertime, usually in the late summer. And we've seen that continuing on every year. And this year started out pretty much showing the same way, where we had that increase of new listings, and then that has dropped off. So we're seeing actually about a 30% decrease in the number of new listings in San Mateo County, and that is consistent with what we saw for seller sentiment. Measuring this in a different way, we do see the months of inventory. For those of you who aren't familiar with this metric, it's basically when we take the number of listings that are currently on the market and calculate how long it would take to sell them at the current or recent rate of sales. So traditionally, the 6 months of inventory would be considered a balanced market. Anything above that would be considered a buyer's market. So if you have a lot of inventory and it would take you longer to sell, then you have it's favorable for buyers. Anything less than 6 months is generally considered a seller's market. And if you look back at our chart here, we've been basically going between 1 and 2 months over the last 5 years. And in April, this ended at 2.3 months. So this spot right here that you see is at 2.3 months, which is a little higher than what we've seen, but well within range. And at the same time, it's definitely not what we would call a buyer's market at this point. So we're still pretty solidly in a seller's market. We'll see how that pans out as more listings come on the market. So we're seeing that when you have not that much inventory, and then that will mean the prices remain fairly stable. And this car slide shows that really is borne out in terms of the impact on prices. So taking the median prices per square foot by week, we see in Southern California, in the Central Valley, we've seen it basically remain flat. In the Bay Area, we did see it slightly decreasing after shelter in place, kind of fluctuating, but going between 572 and 547 price per square foot. It hasn't really had a major impact in terms of sale prices. Central Coast has fluctuated a bit more, but still fairly steady on the whole. It's interesting because at the same time, buyers do think there has been a significant price drop because of coronavirus. So there is this expectations gap. And this question, when posed in general, how are home buyers expecting lower prices now? It's interesting to see that in April, at the beginning of April, there was this expectation 89%, and gradually that has dropped off. So now it's gone down to 82%, as buyers are realizing that prices are not changing as much as they thought it might be. And at the same time, sellers, so have any of your sellers recently reduced price to attract buyers? Measuring that going from mid-April and downward, we do see that not that many, 33%, about a third of sellers were willing to reduce the price to attract buyers. And that has actually gone down as we head into May, that many of the sellers are getting used to, again, the new normal, and they're finding that there are buyers who are out there and interested in their listings. And so they don't necessarily need to drop prices. We see this in I'll come back to the median sale price. So in our sale prices in, again, single family homes for San Mateo County, the green line here denotes the final sale price, and the blue line is the list price. And this is going back to January 2017. So you do see a steady increase, even with the ups and downs along the way during the months. And there has been a slight decrease due to coronavirus, but it is still above what we were seeing 3 years ago, or even a couple of years ago. So we have seen a little bit of a dip, but nothing, not that big drop that some people were expecting or hoping for. Some good news is that California-wide, we have started to see new listings going up. And so in the last week of April, we saw the highest level of new listings since the shelter in place took effect. So California, again, is on the right-hand side here, and we have that first 2 weeks of March, and then a significant drop. And then we're seeing it start steadily increasing. You do see this curve in the Bay Area, although a little less so. Definitely in Southern California, starting to see that increase. Central Coast generally flat, and Central Valley, same thing. You're seeing a little bit of an increase there. And for the Bay Area, just to take that even more, even break that down even more, we see each of the counties: Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Solano, and Sonoma. All of them are pretty much seeing the same pattern, where we saw a significant drop after the first 2 weeks of March, and then it's slowly started inching upward. And we're hoping that is a good trend that we're going to see more and more as the months go by. And pending sales look promising as well. So this is when you're taking a new listing and they have gone into contract. So an offer has been written and a seller has accepted it. And this is showing that we are seeing, again, that dip after the first 2 weeks. But in every county, and this is more pronounced than even for the new listings, we're starting to see that increase of pending sales. And so this is very encouraging to see. This means that despite all the shelter-in-place restrictions, we're able to see houses, and buyers are out there and writing offers that are acceptable to sellers. So this is very encouraging to see. I'm just going to finish off with the concluding remarks that were given by the California Association. Here, first of all, he talked about the bad news, which I didn't cover that much, and I'm sure everybody's heard about it, but you can go back and watch his presentation. Basically, that the data, economic data and housing data is starting to roll in, and it doesn't look great in terms of the economy as a whole, unemployment and whatnot. The economy and housing are really feeling the effects of the coronavirus, and we do need to navigate both market and expectation challenges along the way. So that is very important. But we are seeing, there is some good news. We're starting to see the signs of a bottom, as you see both new listings and pending sales starting to inch upward. And we're seeing those housing indicators that are showing signs of life. Keeping it real. So expect ongoing challenges at least through May and June, and definitely COVID-19 remains the wild card. Some people are talking about a potential second wave or third wave even. But definitely at this point, we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I would say when you have people say that housing is one of the main factors that people always need to have. And so if you have buyers who are looking to buy, sellers who do need to sell or want to sell, there are ways to make it happen. And so we've been using a lot of virtual tours, and I will probably do another video talking a little more in detail about how things have changed for us in terms of selling houses and buying houses right now. But definitely, as we see people who are motivated and who do want to live here, we're seeing that the market has remained fairly stable, and we're feeling very positive about how things are going. Thank you for listening, and hope this is going to be helpful for you.